Hey everyone, this is Rohit Raina. You're watching Leisure Martini, and today we're going to go back in time a little by about 250, 300 years and trace the origins of one of the biggest points of contention between the left and the right wing, global left and the right wing. It goes back a long time in history, and in a way, this is how it all started, and it's no longer the part of everyday discussions because the armchair activists or the daily left and right wing intellectuals, they're probably not even aware of that, especially the commoners, the trolls who have gained blue tick on Twitter. So those kind of intellectuals from the right and the left wing. The feud, the contention over the right to having a private property. Left was against it, right was for it. So there have been great thinkers, great philosophers, great authors, or great legislators throughout history. And one of those thinkers was of the view that inequality in the world started when an individual fenced off a piece of land and declared it to be his own. He believed that any piece of land is should have open access, should have access to all, and everybody should be allowed to use its resources. That's also called the tragedy of commons, when a community is using the depletable resources of a land instead of that right belonging to one individual. But I will come to that later. Now, after that, Karl Marx, the legend Karl Marx, he took the whole thing a step further. He set a political agenda through which he wanted the private property rights to be abolished. And this further triggered a chain of events in the world of communism. So the communist regimes of that time, the communist parties of that time or of the later era, they set in motion the laws where they nationalized the means of production, which is the land, which is again the same idea that land is to be used by all. Nobody should own it, no individual should own it privately. Now, in sharp contrast to this, James Madison, popularly known as the founding father of America, who also happens to be the fourth president of the United States, he actually had written a series of essays, also actually better known as the Federalist Papers. And in one of those essays, he said that it is one of the most important, one of the most primary responsibilities of government, functions of government, to protect the rights of individuals over a piece of property, or to empower them to acquire property and have private property. The economists of our time, they have actually put their weight behind this law, because they say that strong private property rights are a great instrument for strong long-term economic growth. But endorsing of private property rights had its roots in actually a lot of logic, had its roots in the lessons learned from history or from the present. So what happened actually in USSR and China, the governments over there, the communist governments in former USSR and China, they had literally forced millions and millions of people, farmers, to live together or to collectively own a piece of land, collectively own farms, rather than giving each individual or each family the right over a farm. And that's where I come to the tragedy of commons. Giving another small example, in villages across the world, the grazing fields, for example, they were collectively owned by villagers. The access to those land was open to all, right? But every piece of land, irrespective of how fertile it is, its resources are depletable, right? You cannot keep on using those resources over and over and over and again forever, and like thousands of people are using that land, exploiting that land. So what happened is, after a short while, because everybody was using those resources, the land ran out of resources. It got depleted, it got worthless, it was overexploited, and this led to mass famines in Russia and China throughout, because the agricultural productivity took a nosedive. But here is an interesting fact. In USSR, in the former USSR, for the 4% of land that was privately owned, it accounted for almost 25% of the agricultural output. Just the 4% of land, because it was privately owned, because it was taken care by owners, because they had incentives, because they were getting rewards that were not being passed on to a community. So the proposed solution to just turn this commons into private property, because in that case, anybody who is owning that piece of land would have an incentive to invest in its upkeep and exploit its resources slowly, on a long-term basis, on a sustainable basis. And why just land? Tragedy of commons applies to everything. It applies to all the resources: air, water, fisheries. If the entire community of people is using one piece of land or property and taking away or exploiting its resources, it's going to run out of those resources pretty soon. And that's why you need private ownership. That's why you need very strong regulation against overexploitation of those resources. So this is one area where I think right wing scores over left wing. It's a no-brainer. Yes, there are a lot of other points of differences between left and right wing. For example, left wing believes in equality over anything and everything, and right wing believes in authority, hierarchy. Right wing is very big on religion. Left wing believes in secularism, at least in the idea of secularism, but secularism has in itself become a creed, has in itself become a religion for leftists across the world. So I'm not sure who's the bigger of the two evils here. Religion is not exactly an evil. Historically, it has helped humans collaborate, cooperate with each other. That's why we are here where we are. We have walked this earth. Homo sapiens have walked this earth for millions of years. But any progress that we have made over the last 4, 5, even 10,000 years, religion has a lot to do with it. But then, yeah, there are cons. Let me finish this video by a trivia. Actually, a very important fact that not everybody knows, which is the origins of the words left wing and right wing. So they have their origins in the days of French Revolution. So people who supported the monarchy, who supported the authority in that revolution, they were seated in a hall on the right side of the hall of National Assembly during French Revolution. And the left-wingers as in the people who were anti-authority, who were anti-monarchy revolutionaries, they were seated on the left side of the hall of National Assembly. That's it.